FPS, 3 RPGs, and 5 sim-type games.
Yeah.
I think you'd be able to come up with one here.
I'm actually pulling this one hard. Ask all the people that need hacks to play Call of Duty.
I can hear you groaning
Oh, yeah.
inwardly every time Sin's mentioned. You're just cringing.
Welcome to a special episode of Mods on Air, bringing you the weekend gaming news. And today we are talking to Christian from Serellan Studios, and we are going to talk a little bit about his studio and TakeDown, a realistic squad-based tactical shooter. So with me, who I have with me is Christian. Hello, Christian. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and she's going to be helping me along in this interview, this live interview that we're doing here, and hopefully we'll be able to put this online very quickly for you so everyone can see what's going on. Now, before I begin, I want to let everybody know that you're welcome to join Mods on Air every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern. We're now showing over at twitch.tv. Thank you, Stickum, for the sudden change. And for those of you who haven't heard the show before, there may be some explicit language or adult themes. We don't do this to offend you, but we do this because that is life. All right, so let's get on with our little interview here. Christian, you are from Serellan Studios. This is an indie-based game studio coming out of Seattle. You started up the studio officially in 2011, and you are working on a game that you decided to field to the public via Kickstarter. So, can you give me a quick brief about TakeDown and your startup?
Yeah, so I'll start with the company. My background, funny enough, I started as a modder back in the late 90s for Rainbow Six Rogue Spear, and then I got into the games industry. Worked for Red Storm and Ubisoft on the Ghost Recon franchise, dabbled a little bit in Rainbow Six, worked at Bungie on Halo, and then I was at Warner Brothers on a large unannounced fantasy IP that I can't talk about. In late 2011, I decided I actually started up my company to I do consulting as well for Hollywood. So I work for a few different Hollywood companies where I basically tell them things about video games. And so I put up a website called Serellan to start up a consulting company, and I started getting emails from fans because the company and the website was my old handle from when I used to make mods and working on Ghost Recon. A lot of people started asking me about whether I was going to be working on a tactical shooter because there's this kind of dearth or the loss of the kind of tactical shooter genre with the with the changes to the Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, SOCOM franchises, cancellations of things like SWAT, and kind of everything going the Call of Duty, Halo direction. A lot of people were interested in it, and so we decided that right about then is when Kickstarter was getting going. We were kind of among the first batch of Kickstarters. We decided that Kickstarter would be a good gauge of whether there would, the interest was just a few forum boys that were, just like to yell at the top of their lungs on every Kotaku post on everything, or if there was actually, more than 5 people interested in. And it turned out that 5,000 people gave their hard-earned cash to get this thing going, and so I had a group of people that were interested in the project, and they were had trepidations as well. Telling people that, hey, we want you to dedicate more than a year of your life and your time to getting an old school project off the ground is sometimes scary, but we were lucky in that we're all veterans. I've got veterans from Zipper specifically on the art side. We've got veterans from Warner Brothers from day one, from Monolith, Microsoft. Just a big team of, or not a big team, but small team of big heavy hitters. So. Yeah. It's been going extremely well, and TakeDown is really bringing back that old school hardcore tactical experience, and we're really excited about it.
Awesome. Now you say it's really not that big. As far as I understand, what is it? There's about 11 main members within the staff of Serellan.
Yeah, I think we're about 11. We've got 7 on site. So we've got Mark Nicolino and Deanne McGann, who are doing art. They're both Zipper veterans, as well as Sierra Online. Mark actually worked on SWAT 3. James is our producer. He's a veteran from day one in Microsoft, so he worked on franchises like Fear and Age of Empires. Tiffany's our studio manager, so she handles all the business and keeps the lights on and everybody getting a paycheck. And her background's with day one as well. Then we've got Andy, who's our animator. We've got Brandon, who's our engineer on site, and then we've got several contractors that work with us from around the world with backgrounds like we've got an engineer that's a former Epic engineer, which is of course pretty cool because we're working on Unreal. We've got a UI designer named Chris Zalick out in Chicago that was at day one, so we're on franchises like Fear and Mecha Assault, so a lot of UI experience. So we got kind of people around the world, and our community manager in Montreal, who formerly ran Battlefield O, which is one of the biggest Battlefield community sites.
Very cool. So yeah, a lot of quite a mix because you have people working inside of a studio and working virtually. Do you find that? I have actually worked in a few studios, and I find that working with people in the studio makes things come together really quickly, really smoothly. You're able to just turn your head over and say, hey, take a look at this, or I need a hand at looking at something, versus the virtual workspace where you don't always have somebody to call on whenever you immediately need that. Do you find any issues when it comes to working virtually? Which is actually a big thing when it comes to making mods, and as an indie developer, you can't always rely on having someone in your hometown that can take the time out and work with you. So how's that working for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and I think actually my mod experience from working with modders, in the late '90s when you used to, it was a lot more challenging to organize people back then than it is now. So you didn't have Skype and Google Hangout and all these things, and so you tended to do it via forums and things like that. So some of that experience has definitely helped, and my professional experience. Specifically on Ghost Recon was the multi-studio development, and so on Gra, we had guys in Paris, and Montpellier, North Carolina, and Montreal, and Shanghai. So you've gotten used to working with various remote studios. But it is a challenge. The nice thing about being in a studio together is like you said, it's you turn around and go, hey everybody, this is broken. What's going on? Oh, I just checked that in. Oh. You can also, you can inform people of things. Things get missed, right? When it's complaining about, the M4 being on full auto, I'm like, dude, just put it in single shot. And like, oh, well, we've got that in? Yeah, dude, hit F and it'll go, you can change your rate of fire. Yeah. Oh, okay. But I do find, some people also, they work well from home. Like one of our artists actually works from 2 days a week because we get the in-game, the collaboration in the office, and then he likes to go off and just make art. And, he just shuts himself in and just bangs stuff out. And he actually gets way more done at home because I'm not constantly distracting him with like, hey, this would be a cool level, and ooh, let me see what you're making because that looks really neat. So it is really a balance, and but we do a lot of things. We use a lot of technology to communicate and keep online with what's going on. Yep. Obviously, we have Perforce servers and sure. Data management, and it is a challenge, but it's cool as well. And not having to limit yourself to local talent, even in a place like Seattle that has a lot of it, especially when you're indie like us, it's crucial. You have to be able to go abroad and bring that talent into your team.
Well, was Seattle a place you had to move to, or was that where you already were? Is that what was the reasoning behind choosing Seattle? I know it's actually almost a mecca for some developers. When you think of Microsoft being there, a lot of developers for Valve, Arena.net, and other studios. So, what was the choice on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is where I was. I moved here with Bungie, and my wife works at Microsoft as well.
Right.
She was former Ubisoft as well. So we both actually left Ubisoft together, and she went to Microsoft, and I went to Bungie, and then Bungie split from Microsoft right around that time. So I've been been here for about 5 or 6 years, but it is the great thing about Seattle versus North Carolina. There are such a wide variety of developers here, so you can bring talent. Like Andy, actually, our animator, was previously working at Google and doing work for them, and he's also done. There's a lot of so his background's in commercial animation, so animation for TV and broadcast, and so that kind of industry here. So you get a lot of crossover where you see people moving from, Microsoft Game Studios. I set up a buddy at Microsoft Game Studios that actually went over to Amazon, because you have Amazon, Google, Nintendo, that kind of industry here. So it's a really good pool of people, and it's also you get people coming in. I've got a bunch of buddies that just came in to work at Sucker Punch. From folks that kind of moved around, gone to Ubisoft in the UK and Irrational on, I think it was Irrational, the BioShock guys, and Tencent, and then actually now they kind of work there along with the former Bungie buddy at Sucker Punch. So you've got kind of people moving here and coming in, and so there's kind of a wide pool of talent here, which makes it a good place.
Right. And now when you started this, started the TakeDown the game, that was really more or less just a concept from the forums, correct? Because when we go back and look at your Kickstarter video from it was a year ago almost, and because the Kickstarter finished up in April 1st, I think it was, when you reached your goal, and what we have up there is a live action video of you and some other people. So this was just a concept. It wasn't anything fleshed out yet. Is that right?
Correct. It really started out as just a concept to return to form, and obviously it's something that I've been working on and pitching for quite a few years. Obviously working on Ghost Recon, there was a lot of pressure on the Ghost Recon guys, move in a new direction that I didn't necessarily. I wanted to make the best game possible, but when someone else is paying your bills and they say, hey, we need to go to a broader audience, then that's your job to try to take it to a broader audience. And also, in the beginning, when I started working on Ghost Recon 2, the original goal was, to focus on cross-platform. Very quickly that changed. My focus was completely on console. And so PC really got left behind. I mean, if you talk about stuff in PC, I don't think I need to say any more than that. Right. I'm sure any PC fan would understand. And so this has been nice to be able to really, focus on the game and not the platform. So we're developing on PC first, with console follow-ups. But, there's not a core difference in the gameplay across platform because, all gamers are missing this genre that we're working on. So anyway, I tend to ramble about it, but yeah, I mean, it really was a concept. And, the Kickstarter was a ride, and, I learned a lot about Kickstarters, and if I was doing something different right now, I definitely would be doing different things and getting more material together and doing, possibly not dumping cold water on myself to do live action video. It worked because, it is, it's funny that, a lot of people, when I talk to them, they joke. It's like, well, you raise this money with nothing more than you in a room talking about this game. And it really comes down to that there is this passionate community that cares about this game and wants this game. And hell or high water, they want to see it done. And so the combination of that with, myself and the team members that just have experience of working on, AAA shipped shooters. It's not just a bunch of guys that haven't done this before. So I think the experience combined with the passion of the genre is what brought it together.
Well, looking back, when you think of developing a game, especially something that looks kind of big as this might be, do you think that you actually set your goals high enough? Because your original goals for the Kickstarter was $200,000, and here we are about a year later. You're planning on releasing in June 2013. Hopefully that's still your goal, which is over a year of development, which is actually very aggressive. Is that enough for a $200,000 budget and the team that you have?
So the budget, one of the things that we had on board was VC that were interested in the game, and so the $200,000, if you actually read the Kickstarter, the $200,000 was to build to prototype, and that we did. We built a prototype. We reached prototype in late fall. I want to say October timeframe, which is when we put together kind of a briefing video and a fly-through of our prototype level, which is Biolab. We've since released to Kickstarters. We've released some additional map box screenshots of refinery and things like that, and various other different assets to our Kickstarters. So at the time, Kickstarter was very new. When I started Kickstarter, the highest successful budget was, I believe, Star Control at $37,000.
Oh, wow.
Double Fine had actually just started when we launched, and so Double Fine was going crazy, but it hadn't gone crazy. Wasteland wasn't done. Wasteland came after us. Obsidian obviously came after us. Star Citizen, all those, and so it was really kind of a wild guess on how much you should ask for, but it needed to be substantial enough to get us to prototype and to have something to release if we didn't get additional funding. So the plan was, if we didn't get additional funding, we'd at least build the prototype and at least release it to our Kickstarters, and they would have something to play.
Right.
And so that's kind of how that worked. And it's been people. Kickstarter is kind of one of the things that it's done is it's skewed people's perceptions about how much things cost. I mean, it's pretty easy to find out the average tech man-month cost is about $10,000. That's the standard United States employee overhead. It's about $10,000 per person per man-month. So if you're looking at a couple $100,000, it's pretty easy to work the math on that. Now, most indie devs like myself, I didn't obviously pay myself out of Kickstarter. I'm sure some people are. If you're Double Fine or if you made $4 million, probably paying yourself a paycheck out of Kickstarter. I didn't. In opposite, I actually paid much more money into the company out of my own pocket. But obviously, we used that money. We were very, very cheap, very stingy to make sure that the money was spent very well. We also had to put money aside for the physical rewards. I would definitely encourage anybody who's a Kickstarter to do the math on the physical rewards and think about shipping stuff all around the world, because that really adds up very quickly. But I am proud to ship those physical rewards. So people are actually getting them right now. If you go on our Twitter account, people are getting their T-shirts and their patches and their badges. We set aside that money and actually ordered all that stuff right off the bat because we heard there's other Kickstarters that they blew all their money and they didn't send out the rewards that they said they were going to send out, and we thought that was really get that out. So
yeah, well, you still probably have to send out a LAN party to at least one person.
Yes. We were actually just talking about that about getting that organized. I mean, lucky for us, the person that we owe that to, Robert Bowling, he actually is a game developer as well, and he has a studio down in LA. So I need to talk to him. Hopefully, he already has a bunch of machines on site, and we can do it at his studio. So I need to give him a ring and figure that out this summer. So, but we are still shooting for a 2013 release. We're pretty confident about that. Development is going really well on Unreal. We're focused on gameplay. If you go to our website, you can actually see our company values. Gameplay comes first. We're not trying to develop new tech aside from gameplay systems that we need to support our core gameplay. And Unreal's been really plug and play. The middleware that things like Scaleform, and things like that we're using have been really good.
Perforce might be the hardest part of it.
Perforce is fun.
Yes, it is. You right now, if you go over to the website, you can pick up on some videos. You can see some of what it takes, what you guys are doing to develop a level and to test it and to prototype and then work it up into something that you think is a little more final. There's nothing necessarily final up there quite yet, and I think you're saving that as a sweetener for later on. Do you expect? Can we expect to see you at any of the conferences this year? Because we have a number of conferences. We have GDC coming up first, and then we have E3, then we have PAX, and another PAX in between. You have anything planned?
We haven't announced that yet. We're still working on the conference schedule. I would probably say that GDC is too low for us to be showing content. And I was too much of a little guy to get accepted to do a Kickstarter talk on GDC. So speaking there this year, it's funny. As soon as you go indie, unless you're like famous indie, like GDC doesn't want to talk to you anymore as far as giving talks. But whatever.
Oh, right.
That's I've spoken there many years, and maybe they'll listen. But so we probably won't be showing anything. We'll be at GDC just from a networking and hiring and meeting standpoint. So we'll probably be doing some press interviews, and we might try to get some assets, just some quick assets together for GDC. E3 is probably much more likely. We're talking about that right now. We're interested in obviously PAX. Gamescom's a possibility. We have a large European audience, so we're still trying to figure out the shows. And like you said, releasing stuff. We want to show stuff to the Kickstarters, obviously, and it's honest. It's easier to release really rough stuff, that's obviously rough, and give that window into development. Like the first shot that we gave of our second white box level facility. It's obvious box. You can look at it and just know that it's not textured.
Right.
But even when we did a quick teaser video of BioLab, and as part of that, we had some characters animated with just very basic animations, just as a fly-through. And a lot of people were like, "Well, the animations are really stiff," and the guys like glasses, and it's like, "Oh yeah, we just threw that in."
Welcome to the internet.
Exactly. The amount of time that it takes to kind of prep people and let them understand what they're seeing, it takes a lot of work, and you don't want to just throw assets there, because people will, they'll infer things. They'll, oh, I don't see a HUD, or I do see a HUD, or all the different things that they infer from stuff. It takes time out of development to communicate those things, and so for us, it's been really cool to be able to have a window of development for both the Kickstarters, the community members, the supporters, to let them know, hey, this is how we're doing audio recording. So we have a big thing right now. Like last weekend, me and our audio guy Chris Larson went up to some land out east and did some test recording with an M4 just to get a lay of the land. And so we're doing a write up for the guys that hey, this is how the audio recording works. We have the 3 different mics at 3 different ranges, and we had we spent all day up there just doing the test recording to find the exact right spot to get the recording. And when we finally do go out with whatever 20 guns and actually do the recording, this is why we do it outside and then add the post effect inside. Like those kinds of things are give people a window they don't normally see, but then people don't random YouTubers don't spam your inbox with criticisms about the videos or something like that.
That's actually sorry, I just said that was one of the reasons why I wanted to was very keen to get this kind of feature going, was because there's so much kind of wrong perception of how games are developed out there. People think it's kind of it reminds me of those memes of like what people think I do, what I think I do, and it's kind of like you think you just knock something out in a week and it's done, and then
Wow.
So it was one of the reasons I wanted to push this.
It's the same, I mean, obviously people are used to looking at, polished assets. I mean, AAA, publishers don't release assets until they're either 1, super polished, or 2, fake. So they're used to these kinds of assets, but of course they'll complain when the game doesn't match the assets that they saw, the high cinematics. But in traditional publishing, I mean, the very first thing that most publishers do on a game concept is they make a cinematic, a fake cinematic that's super high res, because even internally, I've had game executives tell me that they're next level high up executives, you can't show them work in progress because they don't get it. So spend $600,000, $800,000, put together a super snazzy cinematic before you even get started. That's pretty standard in the game industry, and so people are used to that. And so, releasing rough cut stuff to people, it's very tough for them to understand. Just like in movies, I've worked with Hollywood, and I'm used to seeing rough cuts of movies with no audio and no post processing, and it looked really bad, and it would never get released. But that's how production works.
Now you do mention some of these videos. Now I was wondering about the game when I was watching some of what you've put together. It seems like, please correct me if I'm wrong, that we start out each scenario with an introduction, a briefing is really what it was, a briefing of what was going to happen, where the key points inside of the different levels were that you wanted to hit as a team. Is that how we're going to expect each game to progress?
Yeah, that is the plan. Is that each scenario is basically kind of a story and a setting unto of itself. So we're not currently planning on kind of some overarching Tom Clancy-esque, evil Eastern European guys with nuclear weapons that are,
They have to be Russian.
Exactly. Yeah. They're the only available bad guys these days. Is Russians in all these games. But the plan is that for each scenario, you have a setting. Whether it be a biolab facility, which is our prototype level. Facility is what we're calling our second one. Is actually and actually, I don't think I've told anybody. This is a spent nuclear rod storage facility. So where they take, it's like what was going to be built at Yucca Mountain, but it's set abroad. And so you basically have a scenario. Here's the setting. Here's the scenario. Here's the intelligence that we have about it. Now, some will be more detailed than others. So with Biolab specifically, the company that is hiring you to clear out these bad guys they're actually not terrorists in Biolab. They're actually criminals. They're trying to extort the company for illegal things that it's doing. They had access to the security cameras, and obviously it's their building, so they have access to the layout of the building, and they're actually show you where they think the bad guys are in the layout of the building. And facility as well, you'll have access to schematics of a layout of the facility. But then certain levels you may not have that information. So, for example, one of the possible missions that we're looking at is a cartel type mission where you're looking to take down the head of a cartel in South America, and you're not going to have the layout of his hideout. It'll be information. So intel is going to vary from mission to mission.
Okay. Like that because I'm a big armor fan. Much to the mocking that I get on the show, but yeah, it seems very much like it's kind of there's a lot more planning to it. There's a lot more kind of, it's not this typical, I hate to say it, but Call of Duty run and gun where you just burst into a room and shoot everything that moves. It's kind of, you need to think ahead of what you're doing, which is classic sort of Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, that kind of thing. It seems very much that you want players to think a little bit more before kind of playing.
Yeah, well, it's important because we're putting a lot of responsibility into the hands of the player. It's very common in game. You want to build, and it's not necessarily a bad thing that you want to build to the lowest common denominator. So, in Halo, working on Reach, if you run into a situation where all you have is a shotgun in Halo, you need to be able to get out of that situation. And it's not rocket racing vehicles. In our game, we put that kind of choice or that kind of responsibility into the hands of the player. So if you take a sniper rifle into Biolab, which doesn't, the longest range Biolab is, probably 50 feet across the lobby, you're going to get murdered by the guys with the MP5s because your sniper rifle doesn't function well in there. Much like if you have, a situation with hostages and all you bring is frag grenades and you don't have any flashbangs, well, it's going to be really difficult to clear that space out with just a gun and frag grenades rather than flashbangs. And so we need to give the players the information to make those intelligent choices. But we put it on the players that if they make the wrong choices, then it's their ass and they're going to die. And that's just how our game's going to be. Some people that's not for everyone. But the people that enjoy this genre, that's part of the the gameplay is the puzzle that you have in front of you, which is the space, the enemies, the objectives, and then the tools you have to solve those puzzles, which are your various different weapons and teammates, and how you're going to take it down. How you're going to come into the space. They're non-linear spaces, so where are your insertion points? How are you going to move through the level? How are you going to come into both at a macro standpoint? How are you going to come to the whole level? And then how am I even going to just enter this room? Taking the time. We were doing a multiplayer test yesterday, and Nathan, our designer, one of our designers, including myself, was playing, and he couldn't figure out how I kept murdering everybody. And I looked over, and he didn't have his headphones on. And he's mainly like a TF2 player, and he was like playing without audio. And I was like, dude, I'm hearing you guys' footsteps, and I'm stopping, I'm waiting for you guys to come around the corner, picking your footsteps, and I'm killing you as you come around the corner. It's like, oh, so footsteps are important. I'm like, yeah, footsteps are really important in the game. So like elements like that you want to introduce to players, but we're not about hand-holding people and having tons of checkpoints, and part of the game is beating that puzzle.
So, well, it actually sounds like you have three kinds of games here. We have single player, and you just mentioned player versus player, which is a multiplayer. So, how does co-op fit into this?
So, co-op is actually the core of what we're developing. So, from you develop strong co-op, then PvP and single player kind of grow from that. And so, we've developed kind of our core missions based around 6-player co-op, 2 to 6-player co-op, and of course you can play by yourself as well. Probably we'll have a little bit of a difficulty scale as far as number of dudes, based on numbers of players. Right now we don't, but it's really doesn't matter how many people you have if you don't communicate and work together. Our producer James has a tendency to just run out because he's and he basically just like a canary for us. It's like, well, we know where guys are because James. Although he's a pretty good flanker in multiplayer and PvP. So yeah, so co-op is kind of more mission, which was kind of scenario based, and then we are planning to support co-op modes as well. The basic one is just Tango Hunt, where there's randomly scattered around the map, and you have a time limit that you kind of choose, and it's kill all these guys in the space. That was always a really popular mode, kind of mode Ghost with firefight and things like that. But then multiplayer, we're looking probably objective based is going to be our primary game mode, because with non-linear spaces, especially with fewer numbers of people, deathmatch in these kinds of games tends to be, you want to support it, but objective based is really more fun in the style no respawn game.
How many players are you sort of thinking for the co-op mode on consoles?
Oh, we're currently planning 6. 6 players. So now, obviously, on console, that wouldn't be 6 players.
Yeah, that's what I was, because I know that with the Unreal Engine, it's very difficult to get that onto a console.
Single console, couch play or whatever people call it. I call it split screen. That's something definitely we're still evaluating. So we haven't made any calls on console for how many, if any. I'm clear if any multiple players we would support per console. That definitely is a technical. It's a technical challenge. It's a design challenge, and it's a TCR technical requirements challenge. So yeah, it's split. I wholly want to support split screen on console, at the very least 2 players, but we can't commit to it until we get up and running on console.
Because we're primarily PC players, so we're like, yes.
Yeah. What are you thinking of for distribution? Because being in it, I'm sorry if you're talking, I couldn't hear that. If you're planning on releasing on PC, you have a lot of doors open, but perhaps they're a little bit difficult to get through. And then when it comes to console, you only have probably about 2 choices. What are your plans for that?
Well, on PC, we're still open. We've been talking to a lot of the digital distribution partners. Obviously, Steam. There's Desura. There's very different ones. We're looking at Steamworks right now. Obviously, it's got some cool integration into Unreal as well. And so we kind of got our window focused on Steam. It's actually interesting because. Console, what we're looking at for console is Xbox and PS3. Now the key here is we're not currently planning or we currently don't know what our release dates are going to be. So, like I said, in developing PC, we do have strong windows into Xbox and PS3 development. One of the advantages that we have over a lot of indie developers is that I have been working on console for 10 years. I worked at Microsoft. And so I know, the account managers for Xbox. And so I can get them on the phone. James worked at Microsoft. With our folks from Zipper, we can get, contacts at Sony and basically just get on the phone with folks at Sony. Same thing. So, we have a lot of advantages that some indie developers might not have, where things like Steam Greenlight might need to come into play, or going through the Xbox indie developers channel if that still lives, if I didn't kill it or whatever.
Yeah, don't know.
But so we can do more of the classic, the kind of classic releases. So, but it really comes down to figuring out the right platforms and getting the game into people's hands. We're focused right now on just getting the game farther along as far as additional features in the game. Pre-mission weapon selection in the UI and contextual actions and interacting with the environment and things like that. We'll figure out the other stuff.
Well, bringing up a dirty word, how do you plan to protect yourself, or use DRM? I should is the word.
It's actually interesting because at some point we need to make a physical DRM version for the people that earn one on Kickstarter. I'm not a big fan of DRM. Anybody who's heard me talk about it, I'm not a huge fan of it. I've come to find out though that some of the certain platforms require some form of DRM.
Require it. Okay.
Well, it's kind of what you consider DRMs. So, maybe some PC crew could fool me, but from what I understand of Steamworks, if you have Steamworks integrated in your title, then your title requires at least a one-time authentication with Steam. So basically, one time you have to connect to Steam and say like, yes, I'm cool with this game. Now, is that DRM? It's not always on. It's only a one-time thing. Is that it's obviously not draconian, but it's like you kind of get into a hard place. I want to do Steamworks, but it looks like Steam requires this authentication. That DRM, I don't really know. But as far as like always on DRM and what was that program that everybody hated that you was using?
Some sort of rootkit thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kit stuff. Again, so I'd have to look at Play or Origin. I don't know what they require, but honestly, I've seen DRM efforts from people that spend millions of dollars on this stuff, and it's still with intrusive DRM, in my opinion, is that you're delaying how long it takes for your game to get hacked, and then you're screwing for a small percentage of the customer base. Inevitably have problems. So, in my opinion, if you're causing problems for say 2.5% of your legitimate population who have problems, I had problems with one of the GTAs on PC. The DRM didn't recognize it, my machine, and I had to get on like Rockstar customer support, and it was fixed. But I'm a freaking game developer. Like I should be able to figure out how to install video games. I was on the phone with customer support, and I got really pissed. And it was I had a lot of GTA since then. I just went constant. It always worked. But so anyway, I get pretty amped up about it. I understand PC especially has a problem with piracy. I've seen games that sold a couple 100,000 units in the first week and had 3 million people playing them online.
Yeah.
So piracy definitely isn't an issue, or definitely is an issue. But the way that I can do it is write off those people that steal your game, and people won't, or they won't steal it. But trying to stop those people by screwing over a small percentage of the people that are legitimately trying to play your isn't a winnable strategy either.
Okay. All right. Hopefully everyone's getting that, because every now and then we lose a word, and I'm getting it for the most part, which is why maybe I repeat a word or two here and there for people. I think Skype is having a little issue. Okay. Welshie, you want to add some more there?
Yeah, I got a few. I mean, a lot of the questions I had have actually already been answered, ironically. Let's see what we got here. I mean, obviously, one thing that I like to get down into is the engine. So, you said you're using Unreal. Is it just specifically Unreal, or are we branching out into other things in regards to sort of like 3D software, or how are you guys doing that?
Unreal 3 is our development platform. We actually spent a lot of time right in the beginning doing a lot of engine evaluation. So we spent some time. We spent some time in Crytek, and obviously we spent. Those were our three primary platforms that we were looking at.
Which were Crytek, Unreal, and what?
Yeah, Crytek, Unreal, and Unity.
Okay.
So when we looked at the various different platforms, especially considering that we want to long-term be cross-platform,
Yeah.
Unreal, really worked well for us. And plus, we're doing one of the things that Unreal does very well, which is, a shooter in, focused on indoor spaces. If we're doing more of a Ghost Recon or an RMA, obviously, Crytek would speak to us. Crytek's a beautiful engine, and then Unity as well is very good at rapid prototyping and runs pretty lean. But Unreal, definitely out of the box, has been very, very good to us. And has helped us get up and running quickly. The pipeline is really strong, and for even the things that a lot of things we're able to just use kind of straight out of the box and just go right into development with. It's been very good for a lot of the middleware that's integrated with it. So audio, we're looking at WWise, which is what Chris Larson, our audio director, who's done tons of stuff like Connect Star Wars, all sorts of audio. That's what he's using. That plugs right in. Our UI is using Scaleform. That plugs right in. All these things are kind of just ready to go out of the box, and that's been a big win for Unreal for us. And it's actually interesting because it's my first time using a non-proprietary engine. At Redstorm, we use proprietary technology. At Bungie, we use proprietary technology. So I've never used a licensed engine before. This is my first time.
There's a lot of nice points about it. A few not as nice, but most of the time, especially with Unreal, and that you have a community out there that you can rely on to help get some questions answered. I'm sure that when you're working with something that you built internally, you can always turn around to the person who did it and ask them what's going on, right?
Yeah, some things that are obviously Unreal. You can tell when you start working on Unreal. It's a lot of with the technology are based on the things that have been made with it in the past. For example, streaming. We're probably not going to be streaming things in and out on the fly because it does well with. And so literally,
I'm sorry. You're not going to stream because of what?
We're not going to be doing probably on the fly streaming because it doesn't work as well on linear gameplay that we have.
Okay.
So we need active in the whole time, so we can't be streaming AI in and out, so they have to be there all the time. And so what we're primarily using streaming for is essentially streaming in different bits based on the kind of mission player and type that you have. So front loading things rather than using on the fly streaming that you use for like a Gears of War where you're kind of having a continuous experience and streaming things. And so we're using the bits of the technology that work well, and where it doesn't fit well with our gameplay, we're either changing them or using them in a different way, damage systems and things like that.
All right. And when you talk about streaming, I'm used to hearing instantiation. So same idea is what you're talking about. Instead of you want the assets to always be available and reacting to what's going on in the environment, and not suddenly show up and start its new reaction time.
In a tradition like in Halo, always in Halo games you tend to run through those little tunnels and then it opens up. Well, that's because the is streaming out of the world, and the level ahead of you is streaming. And so that's fine for Halo experience because each kind of scenario is self-contained from a gameplay standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
The guy in the basement to know that if you throw a hand grenade in the lobby and he can hear that, he'll hear that and react. He needs to exist in the world. And so, all of our AI exist in the world all of the time. They're not popping in or anything like that. So we have to make gameplay and technology decisions based on that kind of stuff.
Right. All right. Welshie?
Are you guys kind of considering any sort of mod tools or the ability to at least make maps because it's, you use UDK or some kind of that variant? Is that a plan, or is it just sort of in the background at the moment?
No, I mean it's always been a plan. Mod support has always been really important for it. We actually have an active mod team that is actually working in UDK and planning a large kind of day one release mod that they want to make, and on supporting them as much as we can. As far as the tools that we release, obviously we make maps through UDK, and we have been giving kind of our map components standards like the scale that we're using, and we'll be releasing more information to the mod community as we go along as far as standards and budgets, things like that, to be able to build mods. But kind of philosophically, we support mods from the ground up. So any tools that we build that we can release, we will release. There will be, there possibly are some middleware things that might be issues. We can't authorize people to use middleware if we're using it for things like UI. A lot of the stuff, things like video are for modders, which is what we plan to use for our video codec. So a lot of those middleware solutions are also supporting people, and so. But that's kind of the philosophy, is that we want to put the tools into people's hands.
Yeah.
You only have time to develop a game, no matter what your budget is. Always things that you wanted to be able to do and that you could do. And the mod communities of any game, whether it be Skyrim, myself from Rogue Spear, you look at even indie projects like Project Zomboid, and that already have a vibrant mod community, and it's the next level, and so we want to support that.
Awesome. I see Welshie typing.
I'm typing. I think I'm out of questions. Actually, there we've pretty much like the first half an hour answered everything. Oh, this is good.
Awesome.
Yeah, unless you can think of anything there, Phil.
No, that was it. Christian, I want to thank you very much. Unless you have anything else you want to touch upon before we wrap up.
No, I mean, basically, we try to up the community as much as possible. We've got the Twitter at Serellan and at TakeDown the Game, the website Serellan.com, Takedown the Game. We've got a Facebook page. You can read the dev diaries. We got interviews with the staff. We put up assets there. We still update Kickstarter, but less frequently. It's kind of a hassle to update, but there's a few people that don't check out the website that we keep in touch through Kickstarter. But we invite people to come in. If you're a fan of these, older school hardcore, tactical shooters that you miss from, whether it be Rainbow Six Days on PC, the SWAT games, SOCOM, what Ghost Recon used to be. We welcome you to come in, and you can come in, and if you're a console player, you can argue with the PC gamers, and if you're PC, I love everybody here. So come on over.
Great. Well, everybody can check out the show notes that we'll post a lot of those links, your Twitter, your game site, your dev site, and so forth. I'm also gonna be making sure to put in some video of some gameplay that'll go up over in, there you go, that little corner of the window right over there for everybody as we're going through our discussion. And that's it. So I want to thank you, Christian. Thank you very, very much for joining us and talking about your game.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys taking the time.
Oh yeah. And thank you, Welshie, for helping out here.
No problem.
All right, so on that note, I will wrap up, and I will thank everyone for listening, and check back on Sundays for our live show talking about the week in gaming, and we'll have some more stuff coming up. And thanks again. All right, take care.
Thanks for watching this week, and come back next week when we will broadcast another live show. Details for this and all past episodes can be found at MODSonair.com. We welcome your feedback via email at mailbag@modsonair.com. And please consider subscribing to MODSonline.com to support our show. The opinions expressed by individuals on this program are not necessarily the opinions of our sponsors, owners, or partners.